Okay, welcome back. Hope you all had a great weekend. Today, we're continuing our review of our latest RBT practice exam, where we're going through the next set of questions and breaking them down. If you're new to the channel, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. If you're looking for our proven study materials, please check out rbtexamreview.com. We've helped out thousands of RBTs pass their exam. When you do pass, let us know so we can include you in our shout out. Other than that, questions, comments, please let me know. Work hard, study hard, get to our questions. Question 1. After training, a teacher starts to use Extinction in her classroom to reduce the boy's behavior. She's a little worried because the behavior actually started getting worse after Extinction started. What should the teacher start to do? What is the question asking? The question is asking about the teacher and the teacher's behavior. What should the teacher do in this situation? So we know the teacher started to use Extinction to reduce a behavior, but instead, when Extinction started, the behavior started getting worse. What is your first reaction as an RBT, as a future RBT? If you don't immediately think Extinction burst, go back and review Extinction. This is a predictable change in behavior when Extinction begins. We predict that Extinction will first cause that behavior that is on Extinction to increase to a point, and then it will start to decrease. If the teacher is seeing this behavior get worse after Extinction started, we need to encourage her. Keep going. You're effectively putting the behavior on Extinction. All right, so what should the teacher do? Add a punishment procedure. No need to add a punishment procedure. This is an Extinction procedure. Extinction and punishment are separate things. She's clearly implementing Extinction correctly. We must encourage her to keep going. Don't worry about the temporary increase. It's a good sign. That behavior is getting ready to decrease eventually. Stop the Extinction procedure. Again, no, we're making progress. We must encourage her. Continue with the Extinction procedure. Absolutely. It appears she's doing everything correctly. If that behavior is actually going through an Extinction burst, it's what we want to see. We need to encourage this teacher to continue with the procedure as is, and then target a different behavior. No need. We're on our way to reducing this behavior. No need to change, no need to stop, no need to add anything. Continue doing what she is doing. Every night, John's son asks if he can have a cupcake, and every night John says, "You can't eat cupcakes, you are allergic." John's son has never been given a cupcake. What is the most likely function of John's behavior? This is more of a complicated function question. It requires some thought. Let's break it down. We know every night John's son asks his dad if he can have a cupcake. John says, "You can't eat cupcakes, you are allergic." Therefore, we can eliminate automatic because there is another party involved. Automatic just means alone or singular, right? We don't have another party involved. John is asking his dad is responding. That's what's maintaining this behavior. Can't be automatic. Now, John's son has never been given a cupcake. If he's never received the item he's asked for, why would that behavior maintain? It's not to get the tangible, because if it was for tangible, he would have earned the item he asked for. Instead, what is he getting? Well, he's getting attention, right? John is responding to his request for cupcake by saying, "You can't eat cupcakes, you're allergic." He continues every night to ask John about cupcakes. Not automatic because there's another person involved. It's not tangible because he isn't actually receiving anything, nor has he ever received anything, so it can't be maintaining it. He's not escaping a situation. He's getting attention. So the most likely function of John's behavior is attention. Remember, the function of the behavior is why it happens. What is maintaining that behavior? If he's never earned a tangible, there's no way the tangible can maintain that behavior. Additionally, because John is there, it can't be automatic. There's no indication he's escaping. It must be the attention. Which of the following answer choices is a concern when using most to least prompting? Think about our different prompting types. Most to least, we start with the most intrusive, like a full physical, and move down. Least to most, we start with a least intrusive prompt, like gestural, and move up. And then graduated guidance, which is a type of physical prompting, where we use as much as necessary and fade quickly. The question is asking about most to least and what a concern with most to least prompting might be. Now, think about most to least prompting as a strategy. We might be starting with a very intrusive, full physical, hand over hand, do everything for you prompt. What can that lead to? It can lead to prompt dependency. It can be difficult to fade prompts. It can be hard to move down the prompt hierarchy. These are all concerns. If we look at A, it could be difficult to fade prompts. Up to this point, we've been able to predict every answer choice before even reading the answers. Challenge yourself to do that when you're going through my study guides and my exams and my videos. Challenge yourself to not look at the answer choices and to predict the answers before you see the answer choices. Once you start doing that, you've really started to see the matrix. You've really grasped it, and you're on a very good path. In this case, if we're using most to least, it could be difficult to fade prompts. Prompts will not be easily faded. They could be, but it's not really a concern. Hopefully, prompts can be easily faded. Prompts might be ineffective. Well, that's the point of most to least. We use the most intrusive prompt necessary until we find one that works. And no physical prompting will be used. That isn't a concern. It might be a benefit, right, if we're trying to fade prompts. The only concern with most to least is it could be difficult to fade prompts. It can also lead to a strong prompt dependency. Frequency measurement is most appropriate when? If you watched my how to or let's learn ABA series, I should say, we covered this, okay? We covered continuous measurement this week. Frequency measurement is simply a count. It's a type of continuous measurement, and we're constantly recording and counting the behavior as it occurs. Notice when I see a definition, I start to define it. It's going to help me answer the question. Because if I know I need to count how often a behavior happens and continuously count how often that behavior happens, I need to be real sure what that behavior looks like. So, do you need to know how long a behavior lasted? You don't. For duration, you need to know how long a behavior lasted, but not for frequency. The response has a clear beginning and an end. Absolutely. If the response does not have a clear beginning and an end, how can you possibly count it? Think about a tantrum. Tantrums can rise and fall in magnitude, and they can still go on forever. Unless you clearly can state, this is the onset, this is the beginning, this is the offset, this is the end, frequency is going to be very difficult to take accurately, reliably, and validly, especially across the team. So you need frequency. You have to have a response that's clear beginning and an end. What about a behavior that happens at an extremely high rate? Well, same thing. That behavior is happening 200 times a minute. Imagine trying to take frequency on that. It just doesn't seem possible. In that case, it's one of the rare instances where discontinuous measurement might actually be better. And then you want to know the time in between responses. Well, of course, that is not frequency. That is, it's a response time. So frequency measurement is most appropriate when the response is a clear beginning and an end. A second grade class is going on a field trip to the movie theater for 2 weeks before the teacher works on skills like ordering tickets. On the day of the trip, the teacher observes to see if students can order tickets. She is testing for what? Generalization and maintenance. Let's be careful and let's make sure we're identifying the right thing. Maintenance is when all teaching has stopped and we're periodically checking to see if this skill is still there. Generality is we're taking a learned skill and seeing if it can be demonstrated in an unlearned environment. You achieve generality the first time you see that skill occur in a different environment. Maintenance, we know that skill can travel, or we know they once had it mastered. Now we're seeing if it's still there. In this case, they've been teaching this skill for 2 weeks. This is their first chance to see if the teaching has paid off. So we don't even know if it's mastered yet. We just need to see first, has it generalized? Can they go from the class and ordering tickets in a contrived fake environment to the movie theater and order it for real? Once they generalize, then later we can test for maintenance. But before we can ever test for maintenance, we need to see, has it actually generalized? Is it actually mastered? So the second grade class teacher is testing for generality. Linda is deciding what candy she should put out for Halloween. Before her kids get home from school, she leaves several different types of candy on the counter. She then observes what candy the children go to first. What type of preference assessment does this most closely resemble? So be careful. If you follow my stuff, if you follow my study guide, you know my rule of thumb and my trick for preference assessments. Ask yourself, how many stimuli are we assessing? If we're assessing one at a time, single choice. If we're assessing two at a time or a pair, it's paired choice or forced choice. If it's 3 or more, it's going to be a multiple stimulus or free operant. What's the difference? Well, multiple stimulus with replacement is still contrived. We're still laying out a field of items, having our client pick, and either replacing items or removing the item altogether. In this case, it's not contrived. All Linda is doing is putting a bunch of candy on the counter and waiting to see what happens. She doesn't put it in an array. She doesn't put it in a row. She doesn't tell her kids what to do. She just sits back and watches and observes what happens. Additionally, there is no replacement. There's no non-replacement, right? She's not touching the candy. She's just watching. This makes this a free operant. That's the checklist you need to go down. If you go down that checklist, you will never miss a preference assessment question. How many stimuli? If I have 3 or more, am I actually contriving and intervening? If I'm just observing, it's most likely free operant. Contestants on Jeopardy need to answer within 2 seconds of the question being asked in order to have a chance at winning. What are we measuring? All right, think about Jeopardy. Whoever the current host is asks a question. 2 seconds pass, somebody answers. Any slower than 2 seconds, somebody else is going to take the question from them. So from the SD, from the time the question is asked, okay, that's the signal for reinforcement. 2 or less seconds has to pass before the question or the answer starts. Okay, so what are we measuring? SD to response, right? And that would be latency. We're not measuring duration. We're not measuring how long it takes to answer the question. We're not measuring how long the show is. We're not measuring how long the round is. We're measuring the time from the question being asked, the SD, to the question being answered, the response, latency. Not frequency. We're not counting how many times a question is wrong, right, how many questions they answer. No counting. And it's not inter-response time. We're not counting time in between responses. We're counting time from the question being asked, SD, to the response, question being answered. We're measuring latency. A task chain involves the following steps. Toast bread, put peanut butter on bread, put jelly on bread, put bread together, cut in half, eat. What step would we start with if we were using backwards chaining? Now, this question is very easy for a reason. People tend to look at very easy questions and panic. They overthink it. They think they're harder than they are. I promise you they're not, especially if you studied and prepared. Questions are going to seem very easy because they are. No difference here. What do we know about backwards chaining? We know we're going to teach the last step first. Okay, so we're going to prompt through all the steps. We're going to reinforce for the last step. That's the step we're starting with in our teaching of backwards chaining. What's our chain? Toast bread, peanut butter on bread, jelly on bread, bread together, cut in half, eat. If we're using backwards chaining, we're starting with the eating, right? That's why we use backwards chaining. Escape, clear reinforcement of eating what you made. Backwards chaining is effective in that measure. Don't overthink questions like this. You're using backwards chaining, you're starting with the last step first. And then finally, which of the following is not a possible effect of a differential reinforcement? This is a hard question now. Think about differential reinforcement. What are we doing? We are reinforcing one behavior, putting other behaviors on extinction. DROs, DRIs, DRAs. So we're using reinforcement, we're using extinction. What are possible effects of the two? Reinforcement, we can increase behavior. Extinction, we can decrease behavior. We can get an extinction burst. All are possible effects. So let's look at A, the replacement behavior increases. That would be one possible effect of differential reinforcement. If you're reinforcing a replacement behavior, there's a possibility it's going to increase. What about B, an extinction burst? Well, you're using extinction. If you use extinction properly, there's a chance that extinction will lead to an extinction burst. What about punishment-induced aggression? Does differential reinforcement use punishment? No, punishment is not part of differential reinforcement. Can punishment be part of a package that uses differential reinforcement as well? Absolutely. But punishment is not a component of differential reinforcement. A possible effect of differential reinforcement is never going to be punishment-induced aggression because there's no punishment and differential reinforcement. And then the target behavior decreases. Sure, if you're using extinction, target behavior might start to decrease or go down. So, which of the following is not a possible effect of differential reinforcement? Punishment-induced aggression. All right, check out rbtexamreview.com for our proven study materials. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe. We'll be back Wednesday with more RBT questions and Sunday with our Let's Learn ABA series. Friday, Saturday are our BCBA question days. So once you pass your RBT exam and want to move to your BCABA or BCBA, check those out. Other than that, let's work hard, study hard. I'll see you soon.